Are you living your life for yourself, or are you constantly seeking the approval of others? What if I told you that your true power, creativity, and happiness could be unlocked the moment you stop pretending and start living authentically? Today, we're going to dive into one of the most profound concepts of personal growth as we explore Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are by embracing both the light and the darkness within. This journey is one of self-discovery, personal power, and ultimately, freedom. And in this video, we're going to look at how living authentically can not only transform your life, but also impact those around you in ways you never imagined. Imagine a life where you no longer feel the need to shrink yourself for the comfort of others. A life where you can stand tall and show the world exactly who you are without fear of judgment. What if you could tap into your full potential, accept every part of yourself, and release the hold that society's expectations have on you? Sounds liberating, doesn't it? But here's the hard truth. So many of us are living our lives based on false humility, holding ourselves back because we fear rejection, or worse, being labeled arrogant. This behavior keeps us small, keeps us hidden, and prevents us from living the lives we were truly meant to lead. In today's video, we'll discuss the detrimental effects of living for the approval of others and why it's time to stop pretending to be something you're not. You'll learn how to embrace your shadow, integrate it into your true self, and take the first steps on your path to individuation. Carl Jung once said, "What you deny enslaves you. What you accept transforms you." And it's only by accepting our true selves, our hidden potential, our ambitions, and our desires that we can finally live authentically and start living the life we deserve. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the like button if you're ready to break free from the chains of self-doubt and begin living authentically. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more transformative content like this. And if you find this video valuable, consider using the Super Thanks feature to support the channel so we can continue creating content that empowers you on your journey of self-discovery. Now, let's jump into today's video and begin the journey of becoming the truest version of yourself. In today's world, we often hear the phrase, humility is a virtue. From an early age, many of us are taught that being humble is the best way to navigate through life. However, what if this well-meaning advice is actually leading us down a path of self-destruction? What if pretending to be humble is doing more harm than good for our personal growth and self-worth? In this discussion, we will explore the hidden dangers of false humility, how it can lead to self-sabotage, and why embracing your true self is the key to unlocking your full potential. Humility, as we are often taught, is the quality of being humble, having a modest opinion of one's importance. On the surface, this seems like a noble trait. In fact, in many cultures, humility is considered a cornerstone of good character. However, there is a difference between being genuinely humble and pretending to be humble for the sake of avoiding criticism or judgment. The concept of false humility refers to a form of self-deprecation that stems from fear rather than genuine self-awareness. This false humility can be incredibly damaging. When we downplay our successes or pretend not to care about recognition, we are, in essence, erasing our own value. Think about it. When we do something significant, whether it's a personal achievement or a professional milestone, we may instinctively try to minimize it. We might say, "Oh, it was nothing," or "I was just lucky." These statements may seem harmless, but they gradually chip away at our sense of self-worth. Over time, we begin to internalize the belief that we are not worthy of praise or recognition, which can lead to a feeling of invisibility. Society plays a significant role in reinforcing this behavior. From a young age, we are often taught to be modest and to downplay our accomplishments. We are told not to toot our own horn or draw too much attention to ourselves. These well-meaning pieces of advice can be helpful in preventing arrogance, but they can also create an unhealthy environment where we are taught to hide our talents, skills, and potential, instead of encouraging us to shine. Society encourages us to keep our light dim to avoid making others feel uncomfortable. Take, for example, the workplace. How often do we hear someone downplay their achievements during a meeting or a job interview? We've all seen it, the humble employee who talks about their role in a successful project but downplays their contribution, perhaps out of fear that acknowledging their efforts might come across as bragging. This is a classic case of false humility. The person isn't being humble. They're suppressing their accomplishments out of fear that they will be perceived as arrogant. In reality, when we fail to acknowledge our successes, we not only deprive ourselves of the recognition we deserve, but we also diminish our credibility and influence within the team. The consequences of this self-suppression extend beyond the workplace. When we consistently downplay our value and achievements, we begin to develop a false self-concept, one that is based on self-doubt rather than self-acceptance. Over time, this leads to frustration and resentment. We may start to feel that our efforts go unnoticed, and this can lead to a sense of disillusionment and cynicism. We become resentful not only of others, but also of ourselves for failing to step into the power that we know we possess. False humility also prevents us from achieving our full potential. When we deny our strengths and downplay our abilities, we are essentially closing the door to personal growth and success. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist, famously said, "What you deny enslaves you. What you accept transforms you." In other words, by hiding our talents and potential, we're giving away our power. We become enslaved by our fear of standing out, and as a result, we stifle our own progress. One of the most damaging aspects of false humility is that it makes us invisible. When we refuse to acknowledge our value, we allow mediocrity to take center stage. The world is full of people who have incredible talents, but have been taught to hide them. These individuals may not receive the recognition they deserve because they have learned to make themselves small. They shrink their presence in an attempt to fit in, to avoid standing out, and to avoid being judged. Meanwhile, those who are less qualified or less capable often take the spotlight simply because they are willing to put themselves forward. Jung's concept of the shadow is crucial in understanding why this happens. According to Jung, the shadow represents all the parts of ourselves that we have repressed: our desires, our ambitions, our creativity, and our power. These are the aspects of ourselves that we have been conditioned to believe are unacceptable or undesirable. However, Jung argued that in order to become whole and truly authentic, we must integrate these repressed parts of ourselves. This means accepting our strengths, our weaknesses, and everything in between. When we deny these aspects of ourselves, we only create more inner conflict and frustration. The truth is that pretending to be humble is not an act of selflessness. It is an act of self-annihilation. When we hide our power, we're not protecting others from our greatness. We are hiding from ourselves. The desire to be liked and accepted by others often leads us to suppress the very traits that make us unique. But by doing so, we are depriving the world of the contributions we are capable of making. In essence, we are choosing to remain small and insignificant when we have the ability to shine. This false humility, rooted in fear, can be seen in many aspects of our lives. Whether it's in our personal relationships, our careers, or our creative endeavors, the fear of standing out and being rejected often holds us back from fully expressing ourselves. We may have a deep desire to create, to lead, or to make a difference in the world, but we convince ourselves that it is better to stay in the background and let others take the spotlight. This mindset not only stifles our personal growth, but also deprives the world of the unique gifts we have to offer. It's important to recognize that false humility is not the same as genuine humility. Genuine humility is about acknowledging our worth without needing to boast or seek approval. It is about being confident in who we are and accepting our strengths and weaknesses without arrogance. True humility allows us to shine brightly without fear of judgment, because we know that our worth is not dependent on the opinions of others. In contrast, False humility is rooted in insecurity and fear. It is the belief that we must hide our light in order to avoid offending others or appearing arrogant. This type of humility is a form of self-suppression that prevents us from living authentically. By constantly minimizing our achievements and pretending to be less than we are creating a false version of ourselves, a version that is based on fear and self-doubt rather than self-acceptance and confidence. The good news is that we have the power to change. By acknowledging our worth and accepting our true potential, we can free ourselves from the chains of false humility. The first step is to recognize that it is not selfish to shine. It is not arrogant to acknowledge our strengths. In fact, by embracing our greatness, we not only transform ourselves, but also inspire others to do the same. The world needs people who are willing to step into their power, who are willing to be visible, and who are willing to make a difference. When we stop pretending to be humble, we begin to live authentically. We embrace all parts of ourselves, including our power, our ambition, and our creativity. This is not about becoming arrogant or self-centered. It is about being true to who we are and using our gifts to make a positive impact on the world. By stepping into our full potential, we not only change our own lives, but also contribute to the collective growth and development of humanity. In conclusion, false humility is a form of self-sabotage that prevents us from living authentically and achieving our full potential. By downplaying our strengths and hiding our true selves, we are doing more harm than good. Instead, we should embrace our greatness, accept our shadow, and allow ourselves to shine. Only then can we experience the freedom and fulfillment that come from living authentically and making a real impact in the world. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, is perhaps best known for his groundbreaking contributions to the field of psychology, particularly with his concept of the shadow. This concept remains one of his most influential and enduring ideas, resonating in the realms of psychology, philosophy, and self-development. The shadow refers to the unconscious part of the personality that contains all the aspects of ourselves that we hide, repress, or deny because they are deemed unacceptable by societal standards or our own sense of morality. These could be emotions, desires, or attributes that, for one reason or another, do not fit into the image we have of ourselves or the image that society expects us to project. The shadow is not inherently evil or negative. Rather, it represents all the repressed parts of our psyche that we refuse to acknowledge or accept. These could include ambitions, desires, sexual inclinations, personal power, or even qualities such as aggression or jealousy. We learn early on, often from societal and familial expectations, that certain behaviors and traits are unacceptable. As children, we are taught to be polite, modest, and agreeable. Those who act too boldly or assertively are labeled as arrogant or disruptive. And so, we begin to suppress the parts of ourselves that society deems inappropriate. Over time, we internalize these teachings and carry them with us into adulthood, further pushing the repressed traits into the dark corners of our subconscious. However, Jung argued that these repressed parts of ourselves do not simply disappear. Instead, they continue to exist in the unconscious, influencing our behavior and thoughts in ways we might not fully understand. While we may think we have successfully buried these aspects, they continue to shape us in subtle ways, affecting our relationships, career choices, and even our sense of identity. For example, an individual who represses their anger and avoids confrontation might find themselves passive-aggressive in relationships, or they might struggle with bouts of unexplained frustration and resentment. These behaviors are often the result of the individual's inability to integrate the shadow, which leads to internal conflict and dissonance. Jung's concept of the shadow challenges us to confront these hidden aspects of ourselves. Instead of repressing or denying these qualities, he suggests that we must integrate them into our conscious awareness. This process, which he referred to as individuation, is about becoming whole. It involves acknowledging the parts of ourselves that we have been hiding and learning to accept them as a natural part of who we are. Only by doing so can we live authentically, free from the psychological tension created by the shadow's repressed contents. The consequences of hiding the shadow are profound. When we deny or suppress these aspects of ourselves, they do not vanish. They simply grow stronger in the unconscious. The more we avoid confronting them, the more these repressed traits begin to manifest in destructive ways. This is where the real danger lies. For instance, consider an individual who has been taught to suppress their ambition and desire for success. They might constantly put others' needs before their own, act passively, and avoid asserting themselves. Over time, however, this suppression leads to a sense of resentment and frustration. The person might feel as though they are constantly giving, but receiving nothing in return. This resentment is a direct result of failing to acknowledge and integrate the shadow, the part of themselves that craves recognition, success, and the pursuit of personal goals. In many cases, when we fail to address the shadow, it can surface in unhealthy ways. These suppressed aspects of ourselves might manifest as projection, where we attribute our own repressed qualities onto others. For example, someone who feels intense jealousy but has suppressed that emotion for years might become overly suspicious of others and project their feelings of envy onto people around them. This projection can damage relationships and lead to misunderstandings. Moreover, when we deny our power or ambition, we often become passive participants in our own lives, allowing others to take charge or make decisions that affect our well-being. This self-sabotage is a direct result of the shadow's influence, subtly undermining our efforts to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. Take the example of a highly capable employee who is constantly passed over for promotions, despite their obvious talent. This person may have internalized the belief that it is wrong to stand out or ask for what they deserve, leading them to downplay their achievements and avoid seeking recognition. In an effort to fit in with a culture of modesty and humility, they inadvertently sabotage their own career progression. Their shadow, the ambition and desire for success that they have repressed, manifests as frustration and resentment, leading to feelings of being stuck and unfulfilled. The key to breaking free from the destructive grip of the shadow is integration. Integration does not mean indulging every impulse or acting on every desire, but rather acknowledging that these parts of ourselves exist and need to be understood. It is about taking responsibility for the repressed aspects of our psyche, embracing them, and allowing them to become part of our conscious experience. For example, an individual who has spent years suppressing their aggression might begin to explore healthy ways to express their anger, whether through assertiveness training, therapy, or creative outlets like art or writing. By facing and integrating their shadow, they can release the pent-up emotions that have been festering beneath the surface. In practical terms, integration might look like allowing ourselves to be more ambitious, to claim our successes, or to speak up when something bothers us. It might involve taking risks and stepping into roles that we have avoided out of fear of judgment. This could be as simple as asserting ourselves in a meeting, pursuing a personal goal that we've been too afraid to chase, or standing up for ourselves in a difficult conversation. By doing so, we not only embrace our own power, but also allow ourselves to be more authentic and present in our daily lives. The process of integrating the shadow is not always easy or comfortable. It requires courage and a willingness to confront parts of ourselves that we may not like or understand. But the rewards of this process are profound. As we integrate the shadow, we become more whole, more authentic, and more in touch with our true selves. We no longer need to hide or repress our desires, our ambition, or our power. Instead, we learn to express these qualities in healthy, productive ways. This is what leads to real personal growth and self-actualization. The shadow is not something to fear or avoid. It is a part of us, and when we embrace it, We unlock the potential for greater self-awareness, authenticity, and empowerment. Through the process of integration, we come to understand that the qualities we once deemed undesirable are not the enemy. They're simply aspects of ourselves that need to be understood and accepted. Only then can we experience true freedom, the freedom to live as our full, authentic selves, free from the constraints of societal expectations and self-imposed limitations. Ultimately, Carl Jung's concept of the shadow teaches us that growth comes from within. By confronting and integrating the parts of ourselves that we have hidden or rejected, we can become whole, complete individuals. It is through this process that we discover our true potential, not by denying our darker qualities, but by learning to live with them in harmony. As we do so, we unlock the power to transform ourselves and the world around us, breaking free from the limitations that once held us back. In today's society, humility is often seen as one of the most admirable qualities. From a young age, many of us are taught to be humble, not to draw attention to ourselves, and certainly not to act as if we are superior to others. This emphasis on humility is rooted in the belief that being modest will help us build stronger relationships, avoid arrogance, and maintain social harmony. But what happens when this societal expectation is taken too far? What happens when our drive to fit into this mold of humility leads us to suppress our natural talents, ambitions, and potential? This is the problem with false humility, the tendency to diminish our own worth for the sake of making others feel more comfortable or avoiding judgment. In this process, we don't just hide our achievements, we start to hide parts of ourselves that make us great. At the heart of false humility is the assumption that we are somehow doing others a favor by dimming our own light. This is a concept ingrained in us from a young age. Think about the way children are raised. Parents, teachers, and society at large often encourage children to be modest, don't brag, or don't be proud of yourself. In some cultures, speaking highly of yourself or your accomplishments is considered rude or boastful. Instead, we are taught to be humble, to downplay our abilities, and to always think of others before ourselves. This emphasis on humility is reinforced by the expectation that humility equals goodness, and that to stand out or show off is selfish, or worse, arrogant. This teaching, though well-intentioned, can have serious negative consequences. When we are constantly told to lower ourselves, to minimize our achievements, and to hide our talents for the sake of social harmony, we slowly start to internalize these beliefs. Over time, we begin to believe that acknowledging our strengths, talents, or successes is somehow wrong or inappropriate. The more we suppress these aspects of ourselves, the more we begin to believe that we are not worthy of success, praise, or recognition. We get trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and self-sabotage, unable to fully embrace who we are and what we can contribute to the world. False humility can cause us to miss out on opportunities, limit our potential, and create unnecessary inner conflict. We might have incredible talents and abilities, but if we have been conditioned to hide them, we will never fully realize our potential. By hiding our light, we allow others, often those with less talent or ambition, to take the spotlight instead. This can lead to feelings of frustration, envy, and resentment, as we wonder why others seem to be more successful or fulfilled while we remain invisible. Take, for instance, the story of Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds in history. Einstein was known for his groundbreaking contributions to science, yet his humble beginnings were marked by the very traits that society often associates with false humility. He was initially rejected by academic institutions, dismissed by many as a mere dreamer or eccentric. However, Einstein did not allow the pressure to conform to societal expectations of humility and modesty to silence him. Instead, he embraced his unique perspective and confidently pursued his research, regardless of how others might perceive him. His work revolutionized the world of physics, reshaping our understanding of the universe. If Einstein had followed the societal norms of false humility, avoiding self-promotion, downplaying his genius, or hiding his abilities, he might never have made the profound impact he did on the world. Another example of breaking the mold of false humility can be seen in Oprah Winfrey's rise to success. Oprah's story is one of perseverance, self-empowerment, and confidence. Throughout her career, she faced immense challenges and obstacles, including poverty, racism, and personal trauma. However, instead of hiding her struggles or minimizing her achievements, Oprah embraced her story and used it as a platform to help others. Her confidence, authenticity, and willingness to acknowledge her worth helped her become one of the most influential women in the world. Oprah's success is a testament to the power of stepping into your true potential, unapologetically embracing who you are and sharing that with the world. In contrast, consider the example of a talented individual who downplays their abilities in a workplace setting. Imagine an employee who is excellent at their job, but when it comes time for a performance review or a promotion, they brush aside their accomplishments. Instead of confidently claiming their success and advocating for their contributions, they minimize their achievements, saying things like, "It was nothing," or "I was just doing my job." In doing so, this person not only denies themselves the recognition they deserve, but they also allow others to take credit for their hard work. This is a clear example of how false humility can sabotage an individual's career, preventing them from advancing or gaining the recognition they deserve. One of the most insidious aspects of false humility is that it creates a false sense of morality. We convince ourselves that by being humble, by minimizing our talents, achievements, and abilities, we're being virtuous. But in reality, we are doing a disservice to ourselves and to others. When we downplay our worth, we send the message that we do not value ourselves, and by extension, that others should not value us either. This can create a cycle of self-doubt, frustration, and missed opportunities. The problem with this kind of humility is that it often leads to resentment, not only towards others, but also towards ourselves. We begin to feel that our potential is wasted, that we are not living up to our abilities, and that we are somehow betraying ourselves by not allowing our true light to shine. There is a danger in allowing false humility to dictate our behavior, particularly when it comes to our relationships and career. By constantly downplaying our worth and achievements, we may become resentful of those who are not afraid to take up space and claim their value. This resentment can manifest in jealousy, envy, and bitterness as we watch others excel while we remain stuck in the shadows, convinced that we do not deserve the same recognition or success. The more we suppress our talents, the more we push ourselves into emotional and psychological conflict, which only exacerbates feelings of inadequacy and frustration. The key to breaking free from this cycle of false humility is to recognize that there is a difference between humility and self-deprecation. Humility does not require us to diminish our worth or hide our strengths. True humility is about recognizing our value and embracing it without arrogance or ego. It is about acknowledging our achievements and contributions while remaining grounded and focused on continuous growth. In contrast, false humility is about suppressing our abilities and talents out of fear of judgment or rejection, believing that we must shrink ourselves in order to fit in or make others feel comfortable. When we embrace our true potential and allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, we not only free ourselves from the shackles of self-doubt, but we also inspire others to do the same. As we step into our authentic selves, we encourage those around us to do the same, creating a ripple effect of confidence, empowerment, and authenticity. This shift in mindset can lead to greater personal fulfillment, career success, and deeper connections with others. In the end, false humility is a harmful trap that prevents us from living authentically. It is a form of self-sabotage that denies us the opportunity to fully express our potential and share our talents with the world. By embracing our true selves, acknowledging our worth, and celebrating our achievements, we not only honor our own journey, but also contribute to the greater good. Just as Einstein, Oprah, and countless other individuals have demonstrated, true greatness comes not from hiding our talents, but from fully embracing them and sharing them unapologetically with the world. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow plays a pivotal role in understanding human psychology and personal development. The shadow, as Jung defined it, consists of all the aspects of our personality that we repress or reject because they do not conform to our ideal self-image or societal expectations. These are the parts of ourselves that we push into the unconscious, believing them to be undesirable, such as feelings of aggression, desire for power, or deep-seated insecurities. According to Jung, the path to personal growth lies in embracing these parts of ourselves, not in rejecting them. In other words, integrating the shadow is essential for becoming a complete and authentic individual, and it allows us to live our lives with greater authenticity and power. Integration of the shadow is not merely an intellectual exercise. It's a profound, transformative process that requires us to confront and accept the parts of ourselves that we have long avoided. These aspects of our psyche often include elements of our personality that we've been conditioned to view as negative or unworthy. We may have been taught that traits like anger, jealousy, ambition, or desire for recognition are inappropriate, and as a result, we suppress these feelings, refusing to acknowledge them. Yet, when we refuse to acknowledge these parts of ourselves, we give them power over us, as they continue to influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without our conscious awareness. By embracing and integrating our shadow, we allow ourselves to become whole. This process isn't about indulging in negative behaviors or abandoning moral responsibility. It's about recognizing that these traits exist and that they are part of who we are. This does not mean we should act on every impulse or desire. Rather, we should bring them into conscious awareness, where we can assess them and decide how to express them in a healthy way. For example, if we have repressed feelings of anger, integration involves recognizing and understanding these feelings instead of acting out in destructive ways. Once acknowledged, we can channel that energy into assertiveness or constructive criticism, which empowers us and allows us to express ourselves more authentically. The benefits of integrating the shadow are profound and wide-ranging. When we no longer fear acknowledging our darker aspects, we no longer need to hide behind a mask of false humility or fear of rejection. We stop pretending to be something we're not, and this leads to greater personal strength and confidence. Imagine the impact on our relationships when we no longer project an image of ourselves that isn't genuine. We become more real with others, more connected to who we are, and more capable of facing challenges head-on without fear of judgment or criticism. One of the first changes we notice when we begin integrating the shadow is an increase in personal power. We stop allowing fear and shame to control our lives, and we begin to step into our full potential. This doesn't mean we become arrogant or domineering. Instead, it means we become more self-assured and comfortable in our own skin. We no longer feel the need to shrink ourselves or make ourselves smaller to fit in or avoid conflict. Instead, we learn to stand tall, to express our opinions openly, and to take up space in the world without apology. This self-assurance naturally draws others to us and gives us the confidence to pursue our goals and aspirations with determination. Integration of the shadow also fosters greater emotional intelligence. When we accept all parts of ourselves, including the aspects we've hidden or rejected, we become more attuned to our emotions and those of others. We begin to understand why we react the way we do in certain situations and how our past experiences have shaped our emotional responses. By acknowledging our shadow, we develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and, as a result, we become more empathetic and compassionate toward others. For example, a person who has struggled with anger management may, upon integrating their shadow, realize that their outbursts are often a result of feeling disrespected or unheard. By understanding this, they can express their feelings more effectively leading to healthier communication in their relationships. When we embrace our shadow, we stop holding ourselves back. We stop fearing rejection or judgment and begin to take risks that lead to personal growth. This might mean pursuing a career change, starting a new project, or taking a leap of faith in a relationship. We stop letting the fear of failure or the need for approval control our decisions. And instead, we make choices based on what feels right for us. For example, an artist who has always been afraid of sharing their work because they fear criticism might, after integrating their shadow, find the courage to display their art to the world. This act of vulnerability leads to self-empowerment, as they no longer feel bound by the fear of what others might think. One of the most powerful aspects of integrating the shadow is that it allows us to create a positive impact on those around us. When we live authentically, we inspire others to do the same. As we embrace our true selves, we give others permission to do the same, creating an environment of mutual respect and authenticity. For instance, in the workplace, a leader who integrates their shadow and is not afraid to show vulnerability will create an atmosphere where others feel safe to express their ideas and take risks. This leads to greater innovation, collaboration, and creativity within teams. In contrast, when we hide parts of ourselves, we create an atmosphere of tension and inauthenticity, which stifles growth and creativity. The process of integrating the shadow also fosters resilience. Life is full of challenges and obstacles, and when we learn to accept the difficult parts of ourselves, we become more capable of facing life's difficulties with grace and determination. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, we begin to see them as opportunities for growth and learning. An entrepreneur who has faced multiple failures might, through integration of their shadow, recognize that each setback has taught them valuable lessons and has strengthened their resolve to succeed. Moreover, embracing our shadow allows us to develop a more nuanced and authentic understanding of others. When we accept our own imperfections, we are more likely to accept the imperfections in others. We become less judgmental and more accepting, which leads to stronger, more fulfilling relationships. We no longer project our own fears or insecurities onto others, but instead, we allow them the space to be themselves. This creates a more harmonious and supportive environment, whether in our personal lives, workplaces, or communities. Perhaps one of the most significant benefits of integrating the shadow is the sense of inner peace and wholeness it brings. When we stop denying parts of ourselves, we stop living in conflict with ourselves. We no longer feel torn between the parts of us we accept and the parts we repress. Instead, we experience a sense of inner unity and coherence. We stop living in fear of our own darkness and instead embrace the fullness of who we are. This leads to a profound sense of self-acceptance and peace that radiates outwards to all areas of our lives. People who have integrated their shadow are not only more confident, but also more compassionate, grounded, and whole. Integration of the shadow ultimately leads to a more purposeful and impactful life. When we no longer fear or suppress the parts of ourselves that we've hidden, we become more capable of pursuing our passions and making a difference in the world. Instead of living in fear of what others think or trying to fit into societal molds, we begin to live authentically and courageously. This authenticity allows us to fully express our unique gifts and talents. And it is through this expression that we can inspire others and create positive change in the world around us. The integration of the shadow is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth. It requires continuous self-reflection, the willingness to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves, and the courage to embrace all parts of our being. However, the rewards of this process are immeasurable. By embracing our shadow and integrating it into our conscious experience, we unlock the power to live a life of authenticity, resilience, and influence. We become stronger, more self-aware, and more capable of making a positive impact in the world. Living in pursuit of external validation is something that many people are familiar with. We live in a society where recognition, acknowledgement, and the approval of others are often seen as essential to success and happiness. The pursuit of external validation is not inherently negative after all. Recognition for hard work and achievements can feel rewarding and affirming. But when the quest for approval becomes the driving force behind one's actions, it can lead to significant personal and psychological consequences. The truth is that living for the approval of others traps individuals in a cycle of self-doubt, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. When you allow the opinions and judgments of others to determine your sense of self-worth, you risk losing touch with your true identity and purpose. This phenomenon is particularly prevalent in a world that is driven by social media, where the pursuit of likes, followers, and comments has become a measure of success. The constant need for external validation can lead to a feeling of emptiness and a lack of fulfillment, even when others may perceive you as successful or admired. People who are constantly seeking approval from others often find themselves trapped in a cycle of comparison, competition, and the fear of rejection. They may start to shape their actions, appearance, and behaviors based on what they believe will garner positive feedback from others, rather than acting from their own authentic desires and values. The issue with living for external validation is that it places your sense of self-worth in the hands of others. This creates a fragile foundation for personal identity. If you derive your worth from the approval of others, your sense of self is contingent on their opinions and judgments. This dependency on others for validation can lead to a distorted view of oneself, where you may feel inadequate or unworthy without constant praise or acknowledgement. Over time, this can erode your confidence and sense of self-respect, leaving you feeling lost and disconnected from who you really are. One of the most famous examples of this struggle can be seen in the life of Marilyn Monroe. Monroe, one of the most iconic actresses of the 20th century, was often celebrated for her beauty, charm, and vulnerability. Yet behind the scenes, she struggled deeply with a sense of emptiness and personal dissatisfaction. Despite her fame and the constant attention from the public, Monroe was plagued by insecurities and a profound lack of self-worth. She was often dependent on the approval of others, including her colleagues, lovers, and fans, to feel valued. In her quest for external validation, she sacrificed her own happiness and mental well-being, which ultimately contributed to her tragic and untimely death. Monroe's life story is a poignant reminder that even those who appear to have it all, beauty, fame, and success, can feel hollow and disconnected from their true selves when they rely too heavily on external approval for their sense of worth. Another example of the dangers of seeking external validation can be found in the realm of social media influencers. In recent years, many individuals have gained fame and wealth by building large followings on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. These influencers often live their lives in the public eye, posting curated images, videos, and stories designed to garner likes, comments, and shares. While this type of fame can bring material success, it also comes with significant psychological costs. Many influencers report feelings of anxiety, depression, and burnout due to the constant pressure to maintain their image and meet the expectations of their followers. They may feel as though they are constantly performing, living up to the ideals they have created online, rather than living authentically. The need for external validation becomes so pervasive that it can begin to shape their every decision, from the clothes they wear to the content they produce. Take, for instance, the story of a well-known beauty influencer who built an empire around promoting beauty products and lifestyle content. At the height of her popularity, she received constant praise and recognition from her followers, and her career flourished. However, behind the scenes, she struggled with her self-esteem and constantly felt the need to project a perfect image. She spent hours editing her photos, obsessing over how she appeared online, and measuring her success by the number of followers and likes she received. Over time, she began to feel disconnected from her true self. Wondering if anyone would love her for who she was outside of the curated image she projected online. She experienced feelings of anxiety and disillusionment, questioning the authenticity of her relationships and wondering if people valued her for her true personality or simply for the persona she had created. This constant cycle of seeking validation and approval from others ultimately led her to burnout and a deep sense of emptiness. Her story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of living for external validation and the toll it can take on one's mental health. The reliance on external validation also has a profound impact on personal growth. When we seek approval from others, we are not acting based on our own desires or values, but rather on what we think will please others or make them think highly of us. This can stifle creativity, authenticity, and self-expression, as we mold ourselves to fit the expectations of those around us, rather than embracing our unique strengths and qualities. The constant need for approval can also limit our ability to take risks and pursue our true passions, as we may fear that stepping out of the box or doing something unconventional will result in rejection or criticism. For example, an artist may feel compelled to create work that is commercially viable or that conforms to popular trends, rather than following their own creative vision. They may fear that if they produce something that is too different or unconventional, it will be met with disapproval or indifference. As a result, they may suppress their true artistic expression and create work that is designed to please others, rather than pursuing what truly excites and inspires them. This not only prevents them from achieving their full creative potential, but it also prevents them from experiencing the satisfaction and fulfillment that comes from living authentically. The need for external validation can also negatively impact our relationships. When we constantly seek approval from others, we may find ourselves in relationships where we are not being true to ourselves. We may suppress our feelings, opinions, or desires in order to avoid conflict or gain approval from others. This can lead to feelings of resentment and frustration as we begin to feel that we are not being seen or heard for who we truly are. In romantic relationships, this dynamic can create an imbalance of power where one partner constantly seeks validation from the other, while the other partner feels burdened by the constant need for reassurance. A common example of this is in relationships where one partner constantly seeks approval from the other, whether it be for their appearance, accomplishments, or choices. They may feel that their value is only recognized when their partner expresses admiration or praise. Over time, this creates a codependent dynamic, where one person's self-worth is entirely dependent on the approval of the other. This dynamic can be draining for both partners, as the person seeking validation constantly feels insecure, while the person offering the validation may feel exhausted or overwhelmed by the responsibility to constantly affirm the other person's worth. Ultimately, living for external validation leads to a life that is not true to who we are. It creates a cycle of dependence, where we are constantly looking for approval and recognition from others, rather than cultivating a sense of self-worth that comes from within. This cycle can lead to emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and a deep sense of emptiness. The key to breaking free from this cycle is learning to validate ourselves, to recognize our own worth, and to act in alignment with our true desires and values. When we stop seeking approval from others and start living authentically, we break the chains of external validation and begin to live a life that is truly our own. Living authentically is one of the most empowering, yet often challenging pursuits in life. At its core, authenticity means living in alignment with your true self, accepting all the parts of who you are and acting in ways that reflect your genuine desires, values, and ambitions. In a world that often encourages conformity, where societal pressures dictate how we should look, think, and behave, the act of truly embracing oneself can feel revolutionary. Yet, the rewards of this journey are immense. To live authentically is to shed the layers of pretense that we often don to meet the expectations of others, and step into a life that is uniquely our own. The journey to becoming your true self requires that you let go of the false narratives that have been imposed on you. These are the stories that society, family, or even your inner critic has constructed about who you should be. From a young age, many of us are conditioned to act in ways that we believe will gain us approval and acceptance. We are taught that certain behaviors, attitudes, or desires are acceptable, while others are not. This conditioning leads us to suppress parts of ourselves that do not fit into the mold we have been given. Whether it's our creative passions, our desires for success, or our ambitions, we learn to hide them because we fear judgment, rejection, or even failure. Living authentically means shedding these imposed beliefs and embracing the full spectrum of who we are, our strengths, our weaknesses, our talents, our flaws. It is about giving ourselves permission to stand tall, to express our thoughts, and to act with conviction without worrying about how others will perceive us. The idea of individuation, a concept coined by Carl Jung, encapsulates this journey towards self-actualization. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are by integrating all parts of your personality, including the ones you've repressed or denied. It involves recognizing your shadow, those aspects of yourself that you've hidden away, and accepting them as part of your whole self. Only by embracing these aspects can you truly be free and live a life that is true to yourself. Individuation is not a one-time event, but a lifelong process. It involves ongoing self-reflection, the courage to face uncomfortable truths about yourself, and the willingness to change and grow. Many people fear this journey because it requires vulnerability and the willingness to confront the parts of ourselves that we would rather not acknowledge. Yet, it is through this confrontation with our deeper selves that we gain the clarity and understanding needed to move forward in our lives. When we deny parts of ourselves, we feel fragmented, disconnected, and unfulfilled. But when we embrace all aspects of who we are, we experience a sense of wholeness and peace that cannot be achieved by living for the approval of others. An essential aspect of living authentically is the ability to express our true selves without fear of judgment. This is not about seeking validation from others or pretending to be someone you're not. It is about acting with integrity, standing firm in your beliefs, and embracing your individuality. For example, consider an artist who decides to create work that is personal and meaningful, even if it goes against popular trends or might not be immediately understood by the public. This artist is not creating to gain approval. They're creating because it is true to their soul, and that authenticity will resonate with others on a deeper level. By living authentically, the artist not only fulfills their own creative needs, but also offers something of value to the world, without sacrificing their truth in the process. This idea of living authentically extends beyond creative pursuits and into every area of our lives. In our relationships, for instance, we often mask our true selves to fit in or to avoid conflict. We hide our desires, opinions, and needs because we fear rejection or disapproval. But when we suppress our true selves in relationships, we do a disservice to both ourselves and the other person. Genuine connections are only possible when both parties feel free to be themselves without fear of judgment. When you're able to show up as your authentic self, it invites others to do the same. The result is a deeper, more fulfilling connection built on honesty and mutual respect. Furthermore, living authentically also means letting go of the need to constantly seek approval or recognition from others. This is one of the most liberating aspects of authenticity. The freedom from needing others' validation to feel worthy. When you stop seeking validation, you no longer need to mold yourself into a version that is acceptable to others. You begin to make decisions based on your own values, desires, and passions, rather than on what you think will earn you praise or avoid disapproval. This doesn't mean that you stop caring about others or that you become selfish. It simply means that you recognize that your worth does not depend on others' opinions of you. You are enough as you are, And that realization gives you the strength to pursue your own path, regardless of how others may react. Think of a public figure who has risen to prominence by staying true to themselves, despite criticism or opposition. One of the best examples of this is Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Jobs is often praised for his visionary leadership, his innovative approach to technology, and his uncompromising pursuit of excellence. Throughout his career, Jobs was known for his ability to stay true to his vision, even when others doubted him or criticized his methods. He didn't conform to the traditional corporate standards or bow to societal expectations of what a CEO should look or act like. Instead, he embraced his individuality, followed his intuition, and created products that changed the world. Jobs' authenticity was a key factor in his success. He didn't chase after approval or seek to please everyone. He simply followed his own truth. And in doing so, he created a legacy that continues to influence the world today. Of course, living authentically comes with challenges. The fear of rejection or failure can be paralyzing, and the pressure to conform can feel overwhelming at times. But the true cost of living a life for others' approval is far greater than the discomfort that comes with embracing your authentic self. When you live for external validation, you are forever at the mercy of other people's opinions. But when you live authentically, you become your own source of validation. You no longer need to seek approval because you know that your worth is inherent, not dependent on others' perceptions. Living authentically also means accepting all parts of yourself, even the ones you might not be proud of. This includes confronting your flaws, insecurities, and fears, and learning to work with them rather than suppress them. It means accepting that you are a work in progress, and that perfection is not the goal. The process of becoming your true self is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, moments of self-doubt, and times when you feel like you've lost your way. But as long as you remain committed to living authentically, you will continue to grow and evolve. Ultimately, the greatest reward of living authentically is the sense of freedom it brings. When you let go of the need to please others and start living in alignment with your true self, you experience a profound sense of liberation. You are no longer constrained by the expectations of others or by the fear of judgment. You can finally be yourself without apology, and that is when real growth begins. Living authentically means accepting who you are, embracing your strengths and weaknesses, and walking your own path, no matter where it leads. It means living with integrity, pursuing your passions, and making choices based on what feels right for you. When you start living this way, the world around you will shift. You will attract the right people, opportunities, and experiences into your life because you're no longer pretending to be someone you're not. The process of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to embrace both the light and dark aspects of your personality. But the rewards are well worth the effort. When you stop pretending to be something you're not and embrace your true self, you open the door to a life of greater fulfillment, happiness, and success. The world needs people who are unapologetically themselves, who are willing to stand in their power and live authentically. Will you be one of those people? Will you dare to step into your true potential and show up as the person you were always meant to be? The time to start is now. Now that we've explored the path to living authentically, it's time for you to take the first step on your own journey. Remember, embracing who you truly are without pretending, without fear, is the key to unlocking your greatest potential. As Carl Jung so wisely said, individuation is a lifelong process, but it's one that leads to profound freedom and fulfillment. The more you shed the layers of pretense and step into your true self, the more you will experience the world and others in a whole new light. Imagine a life where you are not only confident in who you are, but also empowering others to do the same. This journey is not always easy. It requires courage, self-reflection, and the willingness to confront the parts of yourself that you've been hiding for so long. But as we've discussed, The rewards of living authentically are limitless. You no longer have to hide your greatness, diminish your worth, or seek constant approval. By accepting yourself fully, flaws and all, you'll be able to navigate life with confidence, resilience, and a sense of purpose that will inspire those around you. So, ask yourself, are you ready to stop pretending to be less than you are? Are you ready to embrace your power, your potential, and your true self without needing anyone's permission or approval? It's time to stop living for others and start living for you. The journey to becoming the real you starts today. If this video has resonated with you and helped you on your path to authenticity, please consider showing your support by liking this video and sharing it with others who may benefit from hearing this message. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on content that empowers you to live your best life. And if you feel particularly moved by today's message, use the Super Thanks button to show your appreciation and support for the channel. Your contributions help us continue to produce high-quality content that makes a real difference in your life. Thank you for being here, for embracing your true self, and for taking the courageous step toward transformation. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue this journey of self-discovery and growth. Until then, remember, the world needs the real you. Keep shining, keep growing, and most importantly, keep living authentically.